Hello and welcome to another Growth Hub podcast. So today we are joined by Callum Davidson and Debbie Huddart from Cumbria Waste. So for those of you who don't know, can you please just give us a quick introduction and an overview of Cumbria Waste Group and the types of businesses that you support? So over to you.
My name is Callum Davidson. I'm the sales and marketing manager for the group. Been with the business for in and around 7 years now and seen us grown from what's a council-owned business up to part of a bigger waste organisation that is known as FCC.
My name's Debbie. I'm the area sales manager for Cumbria Waste. I look after all different sizes of businesses, from the kind of corner shop up to factories, going into businesses and doing waste audits, helping businesses understand what they actually need in place, find out what waste streams they've got, and then come up with an effective way of actually them being able to manage that.
Okay, spot on. So I've got a few questions here for you, so let's run through them. So waste is something that every business deals with, but often doesn't think much about. So what are the biggest mistakes that you see businesses making right now?
I think a lot of businesses think that by just having a general waste bin, they've maybe got one bin that's them being compliant, or that's the most cost-effective solution for them, where there's probably a lot of recyclable material that's actually going into that general waste bin. So by having recycling bins put in place, they can actually save money, because the general waste is the most expensive way to actually get rid of your waste. A lot of businesses are still unaware of the legislation that came in last year for simpler recycling, so there'll be still businesses that possibly aren't compliant with that, or they just didn't know that what to do, or that they had to do it. I don't think there was a lot of publicity, was there, that kind of went out informing businesses of what they needed to do. We contacted a lot of customers and ourselves and new businesses to inform them of the new legislation. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things, is people just thinking that by having the general waste, that's kind of ticking the box and that's all they need to do. And then the other massive thing is businesses not really understanding where the waste is actually going to. There's a lot of man and van services at the moment, isn't there? And you actually don't know where your waste is actually getting disposed of. Is it compliant? Are they disposing of it correctly? Or is it getting dumped in a field somewhere and you don't actually know where it's gone?
Fair enough. And would there be sort of like any repercussions that would come back to these businesses, or would the sort of the onus be on the person actually disposing it?
It's actually, if there was anything traceable that could link back to the business, then you are actually responsible for it. So it's not, once you've given your waste to somebody, it's still your responsibility to understand what's actually happening with it. I think there's a lot of misconceptions that once somebody else has taken it away, the waste doesn't belong to them anymore.
Right,
and
okay.
It does.
Yeah.
Businesses have a big duty of care to check where their waste is going.
Mm-hmm.
Cumbria Waste is fully transparent on everything that we do with businesses' waste. So as kind of Debbie mentioned there, if you're using a service which they could tell you what they're going to be doing with the waste, it could sound 100% correct, but it might not be, and it's all down to what the actual environmental guidance says is to happen with the waste. You know, is the facility that's going back to it, is it permitted? And do they have the appropriate licenses? Are they handling it correctly? And these are the biggest things that businesses, whether people disagree or agree, businesses need to make sure that they're doing these checks. With kind of Cumbria Waste, and we've always set out to do it like this, is we're always transparent with customers. Anyone who wants to know anything about kind of the waste industry and what commercial businesses should do, we're 100% fully transparent on it, and we'll kind of provide you appropriate kind of guidance and advice.
Yeah, the cheapest solution isn't always the right solution.
Well, that's it. I think it's important as well, because there's obviously massive environmental concerns, really, isn't there? Like people that just end up sort of fly tipping in that. It's, you know, potentially turns into quite a hazardous sort of thing, really, couldn't it? Depending on what the waste is, or if there's just litter floating around you know, people should have pride in the place where they live, and
we live in such a beautiful area, don't we?
Well,
you know,
exactly,
we should all be thinking about that.
Everyone just do their part to make sure that Cumbria does stay the way it is.
Yeah.
Really.
And a lot of people will say, and we get this a lot in our jobs, a lot of people will say it's expensive to dispose of, and fortunately that is the case. It is an expensive industry, but it's the right way to do it. You know, our costs accurately reflect the work that has to go into actually treating with this waste, and I'm sure that any business, especially any local business, would much rather that their waste was being handled appropriately than, as you say, being disposed somewhere in a lay-by, somewhere in a field, and not being handled properly, because they may not pay for it now, but ultimately you end up paying for it in whatever way, whether it's an environmental damage or something longer term. It's one of the reasons why we kind of preach the whole message around compliance and doing your background checks on your waste businesses and everything like that.
Yeah.
Peace of mind for businesses that they know that when we dispose of the waste, it's actually getting disposed of in a compliant manner, and nothing's going to come back.
Well, it's that risk as well,
yeah.
isn't it? Because you say like it is an expensive cost, but if there's that risk that, you know, something's just going to be traced back to you and you're going to get hit with fines, it's going to cost more in the long run anyway. Yeah. Is it worth it? And as well, you made an interesting point as well. It was quite a good tip, I thought, about splitting your waste, not just putting everything in a general bin to sort of lower the costs as well. Do you know how much, or to give our listeners an idea as to how much you could potentially save by
It's around about 45%.
Right.
So your general waste bin, on average, I don't really want to give out prices because
like a percentage.
It's about an 1100 litre recycling bin will cost you around about 45% less than an 1100 litre general waste bin. Right. So if you're putting cardboard, tins, plastics, all into your general waste bin, and you're getting that collected on a weekly basis, you could actually have two bins and go on a fortnightly collection, and you're saving. There's savings there and you're recycling. Right, brilliant.
It's also it's the waste industry that all the financial aspects of it is measured on weight. That's kind of how the industry works. So, as Debbie said there, the general waste is your most expensive thing that you can get rid of. There's nothing else from our perspective that the general business produces. You know, there's obviously other waste streams that are a lot more expensive, but for what the traditional commercial business produces, there's nothing more expensive than that. So if you are a business and you are producing a lot of items which go into your general waste, well, if that can be recycled, then you're not producing as much general waste, you're producing the recyclable material, so therefore your costs ultimately come down as a result of it, because it's all based on weight. So less general waste weight, then less costs.
Fantastic. Yeah, so you mentioned before about the simpler recycling legislation that came in. So can you, in sort of simple terms as well, just tell us a little bit about what that is?
So last year it came in for if businesses had 10 staff or more, then you needed to comply with the simpler recycling regulations, which meant that you had to have a 3-bin system basically for your general waste. You had to separate out your recyclables, so card, tins, plastic and glass, and then have a separate food bin for food waste. So it is just the things that you can put in the food waste bin, such as tea bags, banana skins, coffee grinds, that sort of thing. A lot of offices probably aren't producing that much food waste, but we can be flexible on collections and things like that, so it doesn't have to be a weekly collection. It's really beneficial for restaurants anywhere that's serving food, because there's a lot of food waste that's then going into general waste, which weighs a lot. So by bringing that food waste out, there's also some cost savings that can be made there as well. So it's separating that recyclable material out of your general waste and the food waste.
Okay, brilliant.
There's also a good environmental benefit to it as well. So previously, before the simpler recycling, food waste was going in everyone's general waste bin, and that was being treated whichever way your supplier deals with it, whether it's going off for RDF or whether it's going for another form. with separating your food waste, it then gets put back into a renewable form of energy. So it goes through various processes. One prominent example is an anaerobic digestion plant, which will then basically, without kind of making it as complex as it actually is, essentially it breaks down and it takes the necessary gases out of it to basically be used for various different things, agricultural use, amongst various different things. So there's an actual real benefit to doing it, not only from a financial perspective but from an environmental perspective as well.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, at least we're getting some extra utility out of it as well. Yeah.
And as Debbie said, the restaurants, the care homes, anything which produces a lot of food waste is your highest areas where the food waste is prominent. So therefore your general waste bins are probably the heaviest that they can be. If you take that out, it significantly reduces it.
I think it blew everybody's mind, didn't it, that they had to introduce another waste stream, and it confused a lot of people last year, didn't it, when it came out. It was like all of a sudden people didn't know what they should be putting in what bin, and it's just, for some businesses that already had recycling and general waste, it was just another bin for food waste. People are like, oh, where do I put my napkins now? In the same place you put it.
A lot of people know.
I suppose, but you start second guessing yourself a bit sometimes, don't you, with things like that, and because there is quite a few options, and I could see how it could get a bit confusing, because there's certain things that you can put in your recycling at home, but but you can't recycle certain plastics, but you can others, and so it can be a bit tricky, I guess.
I think that's also where us as waste businesses, and it includes others in the sector, we need to do on site. That's again a specific kind of material, such as your orange juice cartons. Again, that can't be recycled the same way as what you do with your cardboard or your paper.
Because it has that silver lining inside of it.
So again, it all gets handled completely differently. So that's something that Cumbria Waste, and there's only a select few of businesses in the UK that have that technology to accurately separate Tetra Pak from everything else in your bin.
Right. So, I suppose it's a complex business to be in, isn't it? Yeah.
Definitely.
Because I guess there's no sort of standardised way to make packaging, is there, really? I don't think. I mean, you might be able to educate me here on this, but there's probably certain regulations that packaging companies have to meet, but it could be anything really, though, couldn't it?
It's a multitude of different things. We actually got asked a really good question on a recent tour around why are bleach bottles, for example, made with the kind of plastic that they are compared to your Coke bottle. Well, although there's something probably official out there, the best way to surmise it is the density and the thickness and the colour grade of as I said, a bleach bottle is a lot stronger to your Coke bottle. You can see what's inside your Coke bottle because it's a thin plastic film grade. Whereas with your bleach bottles, etc., it's bright, colourful, yellow bottles. That's useful for branding. The other thing is what's actually going inside. I don't think it'd be very good if we were putting all sorts of chemicals inside very thin plastics, which we were putting on shelves and storing in people's homes. So there's loads of various different things as to why things are made like they're made, and it's purely from the manufacturing purpose, what's fit for purpose, and then it's up to us as a waste industry to find a way to recycle that as best as possible.
It's almost just trying to sort of reverse engineer what has been made, isn't it, to tear it apart and send it on its way.
State-of-the-art machinery that then picks it off with lasers, there's blowers, and it recognises. It's all very high tech, isn't it? AI, and
we use
separate it all.
Various different things, polymer separators, which going back to the plastic example, that the density that's used between the different kind of grades of plastic, our polymer separator shines a light through them. It's technology which recognises what kind of grade of plastic that is, whether it's your HD, your PP, your PET. That'll get used and that'll get separated into its own separate bay, which is when we'll come in and we'll then bale that and send that off to a specialist in that kind of grade of plastic, who will then put it most likely back down into pellets to be made back into more plastic.
It's absolutely fascinating, really, isn't it? Like the amount of work that all goes into it.
Yeah, and people just put things in the bin and
Yeah.
don't really think.
And you just don't think of it, do you?
Yep.
So with those like recent changes as well, so are there any sort of potential risks if people don't act? Like don't act upon, actually sort of...
Yeah, so it's down to the environmental agency, isn't it, that they would do the inspections. So it's not something that Cumbria Waste have imposed. It's a government legislation, and it's regulated by them, and the environmental agency would then do inspections. They would initially come to see if you had the recycling systems in place. If you didn't, then they would make advisories on what you needed to do, and you've got kind of 4 opportunities to rectify it, and then it's up to the environmental agency to enforce if there was any repercussions for not doing that, which between us isn't really set. There's nothing out there that really says this is what will happen. So
because it's done on a sort of per case basis.
Because it's still relatively new. It's relatively new in England. Wales have been doing it for a wee while now. It's been a couple of years. Wales have had certain legislations in place in regards to simpler recycling. That's what England are calling it. But as Debbie was saying, it goes through a set process, and this is purely the guidance we were given prior to the first phase of simpler recycling last year, that there will be some enforcement, but as to the level and the scale and the severity, whichever way you want to look at it, as depending on that level will ultimately depend on the actual kind of, if you want to call them, consequences for a business. So we won't enforce anything, and if a business turns around to us and says we don't want that, we don't think we need that, then Cumbria Waste will do nothing then other than say, okay, yeah, no problem.
We can only advise you on what you would need to be compliant.
You can advise, not enforce.
Yeah.
And that's the stance that us and other waste businesses, I'm sure, have taken.
Okay, brilliant. So moving on to the next question then. So if someone's listening and hasn't looked into this yet, what should they do first?
Well, they need to check what bins they actually have in place. So is it just a general waste bin that you've got? Look at the types of waste your business is actually producing. Where is it going to? Do you know what's happening with it? I do know some businesses that have said that they take the rubbish to the tip, which they're not allowed to do. With it being a trade waste collection, you've got to have a trade waste facility collecting the waste. So they can always get in touch. We can help. We can come in and do a free waste audit. Come down to the business, have a look, see what systems you've got in place, and we can advise you on what you need to be compliant. Next year, it's going to be every business, regardless of size, will need to have the simpler recycling system in place. So it'll probably be towards the end of the year where people will really start to kind of think about that. But if you want to get ahead, then definitely get in touch, and we can come and help and see what you need.
I think that's what we strongly advise, and a lot of businesses may be listening to this or may have heard about this legislation. The first thought is, well, why would I want to pay for a bin now when I can hold off for another 12 months? Okay, we understand it from that perspective, but kind of what we were saying earlier kind of in the recording, was that there's a benefit to taking them heavy materials, i.e. your food, your glass, etc., of your general waste, because less general waste, less overall cost. So, okay, you might think you're saving money within now and the next 12 months because you don't have this additional bin, but with kind of Cumbria Waste, we're more than happy to look at kind of the weights which you are producing at the minute, and then kind of advise you accordingly from there to ensure that you're not paying an excessive amount of money for your waste management.
Yeah, and I think as well, obviously, if you can help guide businesses through this process as well, and they can get ahead, they can sort this out ahead of time, when things actually do come into play and they're forced to actually start doing this, they've already done it. It's not going to be like a last minute job. Oh no, I've got to do all of this and sort all of my waste management out.
Yeah.
You know, if someone was to get in touch with you, you know, you can help guide them,
Yeah.
and then it's just done. It's just one of those things that's...
Helps your staff get in the swing of things as well before it's actually compliant, because it does take a bit of getting used to. You've always put your tea bag in the
That's
general
its
waste
habit, isn't
bin,
it?
and then you've now got to put it in a different bin. It's,
Yeah.
There is a lot of value in
Yeah.
it, and I think it's always naturally seen from a business as another cost. And
Naturally, yeah.
us as who work in the waste industry, we're fully aware of that, how it might be perceived that, why would I, you know, want to pay another cost for another service which I don't actually see any benefit from. But you know, we'll try and kind of explain it as best as we can and demonstrate to you that there is a benefit to having all these bins in place, not only from a financial perspective but from an overall compliance perspective. Because the last thing we want is any you know, even any non-existent customers as well getting any kind of penalties or anything like that because they might have been unaware as to what the legislation was.
Yeah. And it's the last thing that anybody wants, isn't it? Some sort of penalty coming or being caught out for not doing something or not. And a lot of the time it's just you're not even aware of it. Because it's like you said before, you know, how much like either the governments or councils actually talking about this and getting the word out there. You know, not everyone might know that these changes are coming, so a lot of it is down to awareness as well, I guess.
It's a very niche subject, what
Yeah.
we've found, and what we've always realised with commercial businesses is that they're not really actively looking at waste management regulation and what businesses should be doing with their waste. It's only when somebody kind of raises it to them, that's when they start to realise, right, I need to do this or this to kind of get back in line, so to speak. So we're fully aware that half of this always comes as brand new news to somebody. They've never heard of this before, but that's what kind of us as a business are here for. If we're not providing you services, we'll happily provide you guidance and advice as to what you need to do.
Well, I've got one last little question here at the bottom, just thought I might throw it out there. So what was like the worst ever sort of waste mistake or anything that you've ever seen a business do?
There are a few. There's some, especially when you work on the sites. There are some things which you see that you don't even know existed once upon a time. But there's all sorts. In terms of horror stories, I don't know. I mean, there's some where customers have put things into bins which has caused a massive issue for us back on site, which at the time certainly isn't funny.
Yeah, probably not.
But it's, you know, I think the stuff like, I don't know, paint tins, stuff which causes a huge amount of mess.
Yeah, our painting's quite hard to deal with.
Well, paint tins shouldn't be going in your general waste. They should be handled specifically as its own specific waste item. But obviously, if anyone that obviously knows how the RCV operation works, you put it in your bin, you put it in the RCV, you tip it out at site, it just leaves a huge old mess. So we've likely had that a few times in the past. There are a few others, but we won't go into specific detail on what we get.
I think a lot of people think that a general waste skip or a general waste bin means that they can just put anything,
Just absolutely anything.
in there, and you can't.
Yeah.
It's for compactable waste. It's not for aerosols, your toaster, TV, or.
Yeah, I think we like to raise awareness on that because, again, a lot of people might not see it like this, and I think it's only when you walk on the sites or understand the waste sites that there's a huge risk for everyone who works on these waste sites, because anyone who's listening to this might put their aerosols, might put their batteries in the general waste bin.
I suppose the biggest one now is vapes.
Yeah, vapes.
And people putting those in the general
Well,
waste
there must
bin.
be thousands of them every day, is there?
When they come in, and you know their batteries, that you know
Cause
they
fires.
can cause fires. We're dealing with material which is extremely flammable in their own unique right. So if you start to put stuff like vapes, batteries, aerosols, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. So we try to do a lot of education with customers to let them know that, listen, you know, I know it's convenient for you to put your aerosols batteries in your general waste bin, but this is a site safety thing and this is an RCV safety thing for our crew members. We don't want them kind of emptying a bin and then there's this kind of big flash and a bang and a fire started, and that's the last thing we want for anyone's safety on any of our sites.
So
and
how
it's
do
not
people...
something we can't deal with, because we're total waste management, so you can have a separate container for vapes, batteries, those sort of things. Electrical items will be collected separately, so we can dispose of practically any type of waste.
But it's just making sure that they are separate from the general one as well.
There's very little waste that us as a business can handle, whether that's we deal with it directly or whether we use kind of our other waste partners to help with us. But there's very little, and as Debbie said, the batteries, the vapes, you know, they're all classed as kind of your electrical items. Hazardous waste, if you want the official title on it, that's something we could do. We have our own hazardous waste division and they could deal with anything, as I said, batteries, asbestos, all sorts.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks for listening, everyone. Yeah, this has been Callum Davidson and Debbie Huddart from the Cumbria Waste Management Group. So I hope that's shone some light on the recent changes that's been happening. And yeah, please do reach out to them. If you've got any questions about your business's waste, they'll definitely come out to help. Thank you very much.